Let's get peppy. Welcome to PEP 121. This is PEP, or Planet Extra Podcast. It's an offshoot of Planet America on the ABC Australia, which you can see on Friday at 8 p.m. on ABC News Channel, iView, or on Facebook at ABC Planet America and on YouTube at the ABC In-Depth channel. I'm getting better at this, Dave.
Yeah.
Only, 4 years in?
Yes.
On PEP, we cover all the stuff that's too nerdy for TV. And if you're listening, you can also see this podcast on Facebook and YouTube. And we are joined by the person I've already given away. What a spoiler. Dr. Dave Smith. Introduce yourself, Dave.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. David Smith of the United States Study Centre at the University of Sydney. However, I do not speak for either of those institutions. What you are going to hear today is my opinions, not the opinions of those places.
And you're getting good at that as well.
Yes.
I reckon by year 10, where you're going to be almost professional.
Almost.
The show I've been plugging for the last few weeks is called What the FAQ, but if you look it up on iView, it's WTFAQ. We got a few people pointing out that they couldn't find it on iView because I kept on saying what the FAQ, WTFAQ. But if you type in what the FAQ on iView, it now directs you to that. Thanks to you guys for telling me that. But, ratings are improving.
That's good.
They were abysmal last time we spoke. they're better now.
Good.
I'd like to think it's because of the quality of the show, but it's probably because of you guys. So thank you very much. It's the PEP Army, Dave. The PEP Army in full effect. So keep watching on iView because they're the ratings that count. If you're overseas, you need a VPN. Also, keep asking questions because I did an absurd amount of research this week.
Oh, good.
Chasing up people's questions on particularly whether a human can outrun an angry panda.
Right.
Which is, you might think that's obvious. It's actually not at all. Why are you looking like that? Tell me what you think. What do you think the answer is? I know the answer.
I would have thought that a human can outrun a panda.
Well, guess what?
They can't?
Panda's top speed is 30 kilometers an hour.
Really?
Which means that Usain Bolt can outrun an angry panda, but maybe you can't.
No, I definitely couldn't. Okay, so a human can outrun an angry panda.
Yeah. They don't run for long. They're not.
They're not the
runners.
fastest.
No.
Yeah, I mean, pandas are famously clumsy.
Yeah. Well,
so
also,
I would have thought that they're just constantly falling over in the cutest possible way and
rolling around.
Yeah.
Well, you would think that, but as it turns out, they run around amongst bamboo as well. So maybe we'd seem pretty clumsy running around where they run around. But anyway, I did a lot of research on that, and also whether your internal farts make you float just a tiny bit.
Was this inspired by Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
I don't know where the questions came from, but literally, this is not a lie.
Yep.
3 different people asked us, when you fart, do you become a little bit lighter or a little bit heavier? Because farts are made of methane, which flows a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what's the... Oh, no, you've got to watch the show if you want to find out the answer to that. You're not getting any free answers from us.
I already gave you the answer about the panda.
Unless it's about... Oh, yeah.
I gave you one. You got to watch the show for 2. Both those questions are coming up because I've done the research on them. Anyway, this is the Just Do Something app where people are just doing things which they really shouldn't be doing because they couldn't give a toss.
Okay.
There's a lot of examples of this coming up.
Yes.
Before we start, I always like to say what I'm grateful for. I don't know if you've picked up the hint of that yet, Dave.
What, that I'm supposed to say that I'm grateful for something?
If you can think of anything that you're grateful for in the next probably 2 minutes while I talk about what I'm grateful for, then you can add it.
Okay.
But otherwise, it doesn't matter because I will just say what I'm grateful for.
Sure.
What I'm grateful for is the FDA, and I want to tell you why. People don't normally say they're grateful for the FDA.
No, they definitely don't.
But I'll tell you why I am grateful for the FDA. It's because they have dealt a hammer blow to the bane of my existence.
What's that?
What I'm referring to are those shitty cold and flu tablets that don't work.
Yes.
You see, you're grateful for them as well.
When I saw this, I was like, I knew it.
Yes.
I absolutely knew it.
I am astonished by how many people have written pieces in the last week in America going, oh, what a scandal. Those cold and flu medicines don't work. It's like, where have you been?
Yes.
Have you ever tried them? They clearly don't work.
Yeah.
What we're referring to there is the phenylephrine tablets, not the pseudoephedrine.
No.
tablets, which
Which
definitely
worked.
work.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely worked, but then they took them away, or they put them behind the counter.
Yeah.
Because the pharmacy counter, because people were using them to make meth, I think, or speed or something
Yes.
like that. And they replaced them with these phenylephrine tablets, and they just do not work. So
No.
obviously, and the FDA's done an advisory panel has returned
Yeah.
a unanimous verdict that phenylephrine does not work, and recommending they be taken off the market
Good.
as a rip-off.
Absolutely
Which
take
they
them off.
Welcome to 20 years ago, guys.
Yeah.
A bit late, but still they're here. The big surprise to me from
Yes.
this news is that apparently phenylephrine does work sometimes, just not in the way that we use it. Apparently it works as a nasal, like a spray.
Oh, right.
Or
Okay.
as an eye drop. Like
Yeah,
apparently
yeah.
the actual chemical works. The problem is
Yeah.
you digest it
Yes.
when you take it orally.
Yeah.
And so there's only like 1% trace elements of the medicine
Yes.
when it
Yeah,
gets into
yeah.
your bloodstream, and that's why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they tried it at 4 times the recommended strength, and it still did nothing.
Yes.
Because you digest it all.
Yeah.
So yes, the news is sometimes it does work, but not in the form that we take it.
Right. To what extent was the overreaction to pseudoephedrine driven by, I think it was the first episode of Breaking Bad, where this drug manufacturer explains that he's got this army of people who go out to pharmacies to buy pseudoephedrine?
Look, I mean, Breaking Bad is an influential show. I wouldn't be surprised. Like speaking
Yes.
for myself, you remember how the kingpin guy, the guy with the glasses, the
Yes.
black guy with the glasses, was working in that chicken shop.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, when I was in America, I spent the whole time trying to find that chicken shop. I was very influenced.
I seriously think there are some significant parts of political discourse that are just really influenced by movies and TV shows that people saw. So I'm holding Breaking Bad responsible for withdrawal of pseudoephedrine.
Yep.
I hold Scarface responsible for Trump's immigration policies. I think he's seen that too many times, and he's convinced that when immigrants come from other countries, it's because they've been released from jails and lunatic asylums to infiltrate the United States.
I blame Liam Neeson's Taken for basically the whole of Florida.
Yes, absolutely. If you go to the British Museum now, you have to go through this ridiculously securitized process that you never had to go through before.
Entrapment?
You know when they changed that? No, it's Black Panther.
Oh, Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panther's got a scene with someone at a fictional British museum stealing back a Beninese artifact. And finally, but actually quite significantly, a lot of the existential threat discourse about AI, I blame on Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that if AI becomes sentient, the first thing it wants to do is kill the whole human race.
Yeah.
That is Terminator 2, right? Remember, there's this key plot point, which is that nuclear systems were completely automated because that's how you make them deterrent. But it had this language. Sorry, not language. It had this neural learning thing that made it become sentient. And the moment it becomes sentient, it decides it wants to annihilate the human race, launches a nuclear war, and then paves the way for the takeover of the machines.
Yes.
I blame Terminator 2 for the fact that whenever one thinks about the dangers of artificial intelligence, which there are many, but the first thing they go to is they're gonna wipe out the human race. And that distracts from a lot of the actual dangers of AI, which is that people's jobs are going to be replaced by AI. And it's not just the job loss, it's that AI will do the job about 1/10 as well as the people that they're actually replacing. And so we're just going to get shittier and shittier outcomes with more and more unemployment. That's the big danger. But the people who are actually going to benefit from that, the Elon Musks of the world, they're the ones who are most likely to say, oh no, the big threat is that AI is going to wipe us out. Now, that's nothing more than a projection of their own completely antisocial personalities. right. If you look at the people who are the biggest hypers of these disaster scenarios, they're all sociopaths. Elon Musk, Nick Bostrom, just all these assholes who are just projecting what they would do if they had the kind of power that AI is going to have.
People who would wipe out the human race if they weren't massive nerds.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So, because one of my students explained to me this week because I was asking her, why is it that people always go to these catastrophic scenarios? And she told me that something that Nick Bostrom came up with, which is the paperclip problem, which is, say you build this computer with the instruction, optimize the number of paperclips in the world. They said if this becomes too powerful, eventually it's going to turn everything in the world into something that can make paperclips. So the idea is that that it's necessarily malicious, but that it just blindly follows instructions to the detriment of everything. Now,
I'm so much more disappointed by the paperclip problem than I thought it would be when I thought it was going to be about Clippy.
No.
I was very excited. But
the thing is, the idea that this single-minded machine, which has these instructions that it just follows through ruthlessly to the detriment of anything, that's not describing the AI future. That's describing publicly listed companies.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is like we're already in that situation now. Like our lives are already substantially governed by these entities that are completely single-minded and will not stop until they have turned everything into something that maximizes their pointless goal. So, as I say, it's just a projection of sociopathy.
I think you raised a lot of points there, which I'd like to respond to quickly. First of which is with the Terminator.
Yeah.
I feel like the problem with the Terminator, Terminator 2, wasn't artificial intelligence when I take over the world. It was a machine being able to turn itself into a spear.
Oh, yes.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
That's what we should stop. Let's not invent them.
By the way, you want to know the most depressing thing about this story?
What's that?
This student had never heard of Terminator.
Oh, that is depressing.
Yeah.
We're so old.
Yeah.
And let's not invent machines that when you blast them with giant bazookas, they and their head is like cleft in two. They just put their head back together.
Oh, that
Let's
could have some useful commercial applications, I'm sure.
But also on the stuff you're talking about with AI, I saw some research recently.
Yes.
I didn't read the whole paper, so I'm not going to bring it up on PEP. But just as a little side, which was interesting, suggesting that the evidence at the moment suggests that the people who are helped by AI are actually the disadvantaged.
Right.
In that AI essentially makes people who aren't very educated or aren't very skilled equivalent to people who are very skilled and are very intelligent, and educated. So the AI can't push them past those people, but it's basically a leveler.
That's the impression that I get,
At least so far,
of AI as it currently stands. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I don't really buy into the existential threats. Because take autocorrect, for example, which has been around for years and learning for years and just still makes ridiculous, it still on balance is useful, but still makes ridiculous mistakes all the time, especially when it comes to things outside of its native language. So this morning, I typed the word Qianlong. Qianlong was a highly consequential Chinese emperor. He governed from 1735 until effectively 1799, making him one of the longest-serving rulers in human history. Not only that, he presided over the end of the Qing dynasty and over a major turning point between relations between China and European powers, right? So important figure.
Yep.
Does autocorrect know who Qianlong is? No, absolutely not. Made 3 different corrections to it. The third time, decided that what I really wanted to say was aquabling.
Really?
Now, who has ever used the phrase aquabling? Well, I'm sure someone has. That must be why it came up. So someone out there is using the term aquabling, but it decides that is more likely than Qianlong. Now, I am not worried about this thing becoming sentient and declaring war on the human race.
Yeah.
Frankly.
To be fair, I have a very natural intelligence, and I don't think I would have done any better on Jianglong if you'd asked me to type it out. Anyway, I think we can conclude from all this.
Yes.
That we should be grateful for the FDA.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Look, bottom line, I should be wrapping you up because I'm so underprepared for this. I was actually...
This has been Tangent Treehouse.
Yes. I've been venting today for the last half an hour. I've been walking upstairs and waiting for the techie to sort this out.
Yeah.
But I'm so underprepared because I'm very overworked. So we may end up going short, but not the way we started.
No.
But I was going to say with the FDA, just to finish off that thought that we'll see what they do. But when they take all these cold and flu medicines off the market, hopefully they will, the phenylephrine ones, then they need to replace them with something. So hopefully they'll get pseudoephedrine back.
Yep.
and they'll put pseudoephedrine back where it belongs in late night supermarkets where I can buy them.
Absolutely.
Without a pharmacist. So fingers crossed. And I say we. I know we don't live in America. I'm aware of that. But let's just say Australia followed America the first time
Absolutely,
around.
yes.
So,
yeah. I remember when you did used to be able to buy pseudoephedrine.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you did have to provide
I used to
ID.
make so much speed. No, I didn't. Go on. Yes. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good. It
was
worked.
good.
So did codeine.
The only comfort I've had in the last 20 years with this phenylephrine rubbish is just that every time I'm forced to buy phenylephrine, that I just fantasize about some meth lab just making speed that doesn't work.
Yes.
Because they're using phenylephrine, which just doesn't work for anything. Anyway, that's enough of that. Do it. Get rid of phenylephrine. Let's get into this actual show.
Yes.
First of all, let's start with an update from last week. We told you about Alito and how he had a Supreme Court case coming up.
Yes.
Where the lawyer was the guy who he got to give him a softball interview for the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, yes, yep.
And in that interview, Alito spent the whole time talking about how awesome his ethics were and how unaccountable he was, and that was okay because ethics was so awesome. Even though he was talking to this guy who he was about to represent, who was about to argue in front of him in the Supreme Court. That guy's now arguing in front of him in the Supreme Court. The case is here, and Dick Durbin suggested Alito should recuse himself, and Alito surprisingly did not recuse himself.
There you go.
Alito said, quote, Senator Durbin's request for my recusal is presumably based on the theory that my vote will be affected in some way by the content of the articles that resulted from the interviews. But that theory fundamentally misunderstands the circumstances under which Supreme Court justices must work. We have no control over the attorneys whom parties select to represent them, and as a result, we're often presented with cases in which one of the attorneys has spoken favourably or unfavourably about our work or character. Similarly, we regularly receive briefs filed by or on behalf of members of Congress who have either supported or opposed our confirmations, or who have made either favourable or unfavourable comments about us or our work. And that's true.
Yeah.
Can't deny that. You have no control over the lawyers who are going to be presenting in front of you. But you know what you do have control over?
What?
Who you give a softball interview to
That's
a
absolute-
week before that prick is representing you in court.
That is absolutely true, yes.
He had a choice.
Yeah.
And that guy wasn't even a reporter.
No.
He could have spoken to any lick spittle at the Wall Street Journal. They all want to lick him.
Yeah.
They want to give him a big lick, a big juicy lick, every single one of them. That's an awful image. And that's what he could have done, but he just didn't give us stuff because he's entirely unaccountable and he knows that there are no rules that matter in this realm, so he can do whatever he likes.
Yeah.
That's why you need rules, so then they avoid the interviews in the first place.
Yeah. But
Anyway.
as we said last week, term limits.
Yes, that would solve everything.
Yes, because at the moment, the only accountability comes from, old father time, basically. Yeah.
I'm genuinely surprised they didn't institute term limits in the last week after we told them they should.
Yeah.
Because we are a very influential podcast. And we had solved the issue.
Another PEP suggestion ignored by the Supreme Court.
Shocking. Talking about recusals, I've got another update for you, Dave,
Oh,
which you
yes.
might have something to say about.
Yeah.
It's Wisconsin.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and you might recall Protasewicz. I've got that down now.
Protasewicz, yes.
The story was Protasewicz was basically the Republicans had this huge gerrymander, which was just unbreakable, essentially.
Yep.
And it was kept in place by a Republican state Supreme Court that was refusing to overturn this
Yes.
gerrymander. And the federal Supreme Court was refusing to.
Yep.
And then the Democrats won the balance of power in the Supreme Court, and they're all ready to overturn this gerrymander. And then Republicans said, "No, hang on. The judge who just got elected said during the campaign that she thought the maps were rigged. She prejudged that case. So if she hears that case, she should be impeached." And the way it works in Wisconsin is that as soon as you get impeached, doesn't matter if you're found guilty, as soon as you're impeached, until you're declared not guilty,
Yep.
you can't hear any cases. So she couldn't get rid of the gerrymander. That's what we talked about last week.
Yes.
And we thought that was dodgy. Turns out it's so much worse than we thought.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, I have not been following the news out of Wisconsin.
In a number of ways.
Okay.
First of all, she was cleared by the ethics committee.
Yes.
There is an ethics committee that reports that reviews ethical violations.
Yep.
She dismissed the complaint. So the ethics committee dismissed the complaint.
Yep.
They said judges have a wide range to express personal views without making a promise to rule in a specific way. And the Republicans have said they're going to ignore that. Secondly, turns out the Supreme Court has ruled on this exact question.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know that. In 2002, Republican Party of Minnesota versus White, okay, they explicitly struck down a Minnesota ethics rule providing that a candidate for judicial office, including an incumbent judge, shall not announce his or her views on disputed legal or political issues. They said that was unconstitutional in 2002.
I think the Wisconsin Republicans should know about that, given that it happened to the Republican Party in the next state over.
You would think they would know that.
Yeah.
Yes, the Supreme Court said that candidates for a judicial office have a First Amendment right to publicly state their positions on contentious legal issues while they campaign for election. So that's quite the godfather of the conservative court in 2002, Scalia.
Yeah.
Quote, "We have never allowed the government to prohibit candidates from communicating relevant information to voters during an election."
Yeah.
Also, Scalia pointed out that once a judge takes office, it is literally their job to publish long essays laying out their opinions on contentious questions of law.
Wow,
every
Scalia.
time they hear a case.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one.
yeah, it's a good fair point.
By the way, I just want to say I do not agree with election of judges.
Yeah, no, that's terrible.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea.
PEP needs to solve that as well.
Yes.
No elections and institute term limits.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. No, I can't see how you can't get partisanship in judges.
Oh, yeah. No.
if they run
Yeah.
for
No,
office.
in some states, it's officially partisan. Some states, it's not. But
doesn't
even
matter.
the states where it's not partisan, it basically is. Yes.
Totally. I'm glad you raised that. Also, it gets worse. Her opponent, Daniel Kelly, did exactly the same thing. Not only was he a paid consultant and legal advisor for Republicans on election issues before he ran, so we know what his opinion was, but he actually defended the disputed maps in court.
Wow.
And also, during the election campaign, when asked by a right-wing voter if they should have to worry about whether he'll follow their wishes on gerrymandering, he responded, "I don't think you have to worry about that with me."
Did he give a big wink when he said that?
He just twirled his little Kelly moustache.
Oh, I don't think you'll have to worry about that.
Anyway, so there's the hypocrisy as well. And on top of that,
Yeah.
like something which we didn't even consider was
Yes.
another element of their strategy, which a few PEP commenters, who are the best commenters on the internet,
Yes.
that they raised to us, is that Wisconsin Republicans, like some of them have also flagged the idea of not actually holding an impeachment trial, impeaching her and just leaving her impeached.
Oh.
Because if she's found either guilty or not guilty or whatever, if you end the process, then she could be replaced by Evers, the governor, can then replace her, and then that person can hear the case.
Yes.
So if you impeach her and just leave her hanging without holding the actual trial, then she can't hear any case until after it's too late to change the maps before the election. Now we'll see if they try that, but that's certainly in the that's in the air at least, and it would be even worse. And then finally, Robin Voss, the speaker, announced a compromise this week. This is the new news. This is an exciting compromise. Yeah. He proposed an Iowa-style non-partisan redistricting commission, which no problems with non-partisan redistricting. You're going, hang on, this is sus.
Yeah.
How has he found Jesus on this issue so quickly?
Yeah.
Turns out it's not an accident that he said an Iowa-style non-partisan redistricting approach, because the Iowa non-partisan redistricting commission can be overruled by the legislature.
Right. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So, and guess who's in charge of the legislature?
Makes total sense, yes.
Yeah, so anyway, Governor Evers saw through that one. He rejected the offer. So we'll see what happens on that. But this is just getting dodgier and dodgier.
It really
and
is.
dodgier.
Yeah. And it's just like they blatantly don't care about the optics of it at all. It really just is about maintaining their counter-majority.
Well, if they keep the gerrymander, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Unless, like I said last week, if you become so bad that they lose by 20 points, then they'll lose every seat.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the meantime, no problems. Okay, we should really talk about topical news now. I wasn't going to play the Hunter grab, but Dave and I consulted directly before this podcast, and we have decided we are going to play the Hunter grab every time we talk about the impeachment.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to play it till they bring the TV show back.
Okay, let's go.
Hunter.
Bang. Okay, Dave, I'm not very prepared. Talk to us about the impeachment inquiry.
So, it appears that Kevin McCarthy has reversed the stance that he was taking as recently as 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
When he said that an impeachment inquiry would only proceed with a House vote. So with the majority of the House of Representatives.
Yeah. I should say Nancy Pelosi in the first impeachment had announced the inquiry and then had the vote a month later.
Yes, yeah.
But like you...
And was denounced by Kevin McCarthy
Yes.
for the fact that she unilaterally... she unilaterally impeached.
But like you also said, he hadn't changed his mind as of 11 days ago.
Yes, yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Also, the second Trump impeachment took place without a House vote, but that was something that had to take place very quickly.
Yeah.
So, okay, not exactly unprecedented, but he had claimed that he would hold a House vote on it first. So it seems pretty evident that he didn't think that he had the numbers, which anyone can really glean if they've been watching how some very nervous Republicans have been talking about this, saying, a lot of them have said outright, we don't think that there's any they don't think they've seen any evidence. They won't rule out that it could come into existence, but they don't think they've seen any evidence actually linking Joe Biden to Hunter Biden's money.
No.
Nobody at this point doubts that Hunter Biden has done something very wrong, but a lot of Republicans are pretty nervous. Okay, so it's been pointed out there are currently 18 Republicans in the House who are in districts that Joe Biden won, and they could be very vulnerable. I mean, some of those districts I think will stay in the Republican column, but some of them they could be pretty vulnerable. Now,
can I just make another point here, which is that I made this point on the show, but it's worth you guys hearing this as well.
Yes.
That when we're talking about McCarthy having a 4-vote margin in Congress, so 18 is obviously bigger than 4. It's not a 4-vote margin anymore. It's a 2-vote margin.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because Scalise has been treated for multiple myeloma.
Yes.
So he's not in Congress at the moment.
Yep.
And Chris Stewart just resigned.
Yes.
So he actually only has a 2-vote margin.
So it's very easy to see that he anticipated that he wouldn't have got a majority. There's possibly some other strategy going on here, which is by unilaterally announcing this himself, he is shielding those House Republicans. So the thinking there, maybe he actually would have got a majority, but it would have been a politically costly majority. So what he's actually doing is shielding those House Republican members. Either way, it's on. And it's probably not coincidental that he announced this, I think it was sort of just after Matt Gaetz had threatened.
Yes.
Matt Gaetz had threatened that he was going to move I'm blanking on what it's called, the equivalent of a no confidence. The motion to vacate. That's right.
Motion to vacate. Yeah.
Motion to vacate. He said that he would turn this into a daily event. He said it would go every morning, prayers, pledge of allegiance, motion to vacate.
And you can do that because you only need one person these days.
Yes,
in the Republic, in the Congress.
So shortly after he threatened that,
Yep.
Kevin McCarthy announced this impeachment inquiry, and Matt Gaetz still said that he was going to put forward motions to vacate because the issue is not just impeachment, which obviously a lot of people, especially Marjorie Taylor Greene, have been pushing for, but it's the spending is the really big issue for those right-wing Republicans.
Certainly, Matt Gaetz has made a big deal out of that. And
Yes.
I was going to play his entire speech because it started off really good, but then it became crazy. So I'm not going to play his entire speech. But he does make some good points before he becomes crazy.
Really?
He does,
Matt
honestly.
Gaetz makes some good points.
He does. He actually did. Like he went through, if you're interested, maybe I should put a link in there. If you're interested, he went through all the ways that he thought McCarthy has violated the agreement he made at the beginning of his term.
That's right.
Speaker, and they all they sounded right.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, we don't know the actual deal
But
he
he
made.
said it incredibly pompously. He's like, I put you on notice. You're no longer in compliance with the deal, with the bullshit unofficial deal that was made.
Well, to be fair, he didn't have much time to prepare because, I mean, Matt Gaetz is claiming credit for this impeachment inquiry, and I think rightly so. And one of the reasons he is declaring that he's responsible for it is because that speech he announced was going to come at midday.
Yes.
And he very much suggested that it was going to be implied it was going to be getting rid of the motion to vacate, getting rid of McCarthy. And then McCarthy called his press conference like minutes beforehand.
Yes.
So it was like immediately McCarthy went, okay, great.
Yes.
So Gaetz had to had to change his mind on what he was going to talk about.
Yes.
As a result of that. So that's not an excuse to talk about compliance, but still. So and the press conference of McCarthy was a bit it was a bit mixed up and jumbled, and he didn't seem like he like me at the moment. He didn't seem very prepared.
Yes.
And so I think Matt Gaetz is right that Matt Gaetz did drive him to make this call.
Half of this story is that there's going to be an impeachment inquiry. The other half of it is that Kevin McCarthy is clearly under pretty serious pressure, feels that he's under pretty serious pressure from his own party. And I don't know that the impeachment inquiry is going to be enough to buy off these people on the right. Like it's spending that they actually want to have the showdown on.
Yeah.
It's not the impeachment inquiry.
But also,
some of them do, but yeah.
But also, I think, I understand why Kevin McCarthy made the move he did, but I think this only increases the pressure on him.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is once you start heading down this road.
Exactly.
Then it's going to be,
this is what I keep thinking. Like, where does he think this ends? How does he think he can jump off the train? First of all, there may have to be a House vote anyway on whether there's an impeachment inquiry. Which he'll probably lose. But even if there isn't, right? Even if he manages to get all the way through this, there's going to be a House vote at the end on impeachment itself. Yeah. Unless he thinks that he can have this impeachment inquiry and then not impeach, which I don't see how that could happen, given the pressure that he's under. So there has to be a House vote at some point. And I don't know if you say, well, that's future Kevin's problem to deal with, but it's got to happen at some point.
And I think that point isn't going to be far away.
No.
Because they've got a calendar that they're trying to stick to
and
as well.
Sure, I mean, there have been a lot of instances of if you just wait long enough, then everybody will eventually rally around Trump, which is, what they're going to try to do here, because this is something that Trump has been requesting personally. Trump wants there to be as many impeachments of Biden as there were of him. He wants his own impeachments to be struck from the congressional record, which we've discussed before. So there is some sense that, okay, if you just wait for long enough, then enough of these members of Congress are going to get enough death threats from Republican constituents that, okay, they'll come around. But that might not happen.
I feel like, I think I've just discussed it on this podcast before. I feel like Kevin McCarthy's strategy reminds me very much of a very lengthy, I'm not going to tell the whole thing, a very lengthy Iranian proverb.
Right.
Wow,
I wasn't expecting that.
Yes.
I was expecting like an episode of Malcolm in the Middle or something.
I'm very cultured, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's actually from Persia. It's a story from Persia, which is essentially, I think I've mentioned this before, where I'll super summarize it. Basically, it's a guy who gets in trouble with the king or whatever, and he's about to be beheaded, and he said, no, I'm actually I've got magical powers. If you let me survive, I'll teach your horse to sing. And the king's like, okay, cool.
You
all right.
have mentioned this.
Okay. Let's see you do that.
Yeah.
And so ends up being sent to the stables for the next month, and then he's got 30 days to teach a horse to sing. And his mate afterwards said, "What are you doing? Like, you can't teach a horse to sing."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, a lot of things can happen in 30 days. I might die, the king might die, or maybe the horse will learn to sing." And I feel like that's the McCarthy strategy.
Maybe the horse will learn to sing.
Trying to teach the horse to sing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was going to say that the bottom line is when the vote comes, and it's going to come. When the vote comes, he's got, obviously there's even less chance of them voting for an impeachment than there was of them voting for an impeachment inquiry.
Yes.
So he's going to have a lot of trouble getting those numbers up. But and guess who they blame, by the way, if it doesn't get up? They're going to be blaming Kevin McCarthy.
Exactly. Yes.
And if it does get up, then he's going to lose his majority anyway.
Yes.
Because this is not going to be a very successful impeachment, I suspect. And so it's there's a very real chance. I mean, we'll see what happens, but there's a very real chance if and when this gets to the Senate, that significant numbers of Republicans vote against vote for acquittal.
Yeah.
Like, because there are so many Republicans who are openly saying, Senate Republicans,
Yes,
who are openly saying this is garbage.
Yes.
Not only is Ken Buck on some suicide mission at the moment,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
getting up on CNN and just trashing it all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But on top of that, like 3 of the 4 leaders of
Yeah.
the Senate Republicans have said negative things about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
It's
That's if it gets through the House in
Yeah.
the first place.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what Kevin McCarthy imagines the end game being, but teaching the horse to sing. I mean, I think that the justification that they're using, because it is constantly being pointed out that there so far is not any evidence actually linking Hunter Biden to Joe Biden in financial terms. So they've talked about, he lied about not talking to his son, about his business, which is true, but is a fairly minor lie as far as things go. Also,
pretty standard politician.
Yeah, also didn't happen when he was a president. Happened when he was a candidate. Yeah. Their own star witness, Devon Archer, a few weeks ago, just trashed their own case by saying that when Biden had actually talked to Hunter Biden's associates, he wasn't saying anything to do with business. So the way that they're justifying all of this is saying, well, we've got enough suspicion that there's evidence out there that we need more powers to investigate. So, more and more power to investigate. My guess is they're not going to find anything more.
I think there are real problems. Oh, by the way, on the financial thing, there is something I don't think I've mentioned on this show before, which I'm going to really start digging deep on this thing now. Not this moment, but over the next few weeks. There is something which I haven't mentioned before, but just because it's not really, it's more speculation than evidence, but it's going to become relevant. Which is when people respond, they go, there is no financial proof that Joe Biden himself got any money out of this. People do note that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden share a bank account.
Oh, okay.
And that Hunter Biden at times has taken money from that bank account to pay for like odd jobs around the Joe Biden house. Nothing significant. But like doing the curtains, whatever. But they do share a bank account. And so people go, oh, well, here you go. That's how it can be done. Also,
you could say given money is fungible.
And also, I have noted on this show before, on this podcast before, that it is completely within the definition of bribery for your son to get benefits from something that you do favors for. So even if Hunter Biden's making out like a bandit and nothing goes to Joe Biden, that's still enough for bribery if you can show that Joe Biden did favors.
Yes.
Which is the other thing there is no evidence for.
Yes, that's right.
So it's so that is So there's all kinds of issues coming up though. For instance, I'm going to talk about this at length another time. There is I haven't mentioned this before, there is a genuine question over the laptop where a lot of the evidence comes from. Like, I haven't discussed it before because I don't understand it very well. It's quite technical. And also there isn't a lot of coverage about it. But someone has messed with the laptop. It has been messed with. Not necessarily, and I'm not saying that the texts are fake or whatever. But at the very least, I mean, Hunter Biden's lawyer just launched a lawsuit this week about someone messing with the laptop to get details to hack into his phone. To get the WhatsApp messages. Right. So there is. That we're going to get into that.
Right, okay.
I mean the impeachment inquiry. It's going to become a problem for the Republicans at some point in time. Someone's going to go, hang on, this laptop that you're relying on has been messed with. And it's just going to become messy, you know?
Right. Everything about this is messy in every sense.
And there's also one thing I haven't mentioned before, which I'm going to mention now, and I'll mention over and over again. Every time I talk about this, I'm going to mention this because I think this is the one massive detail that has been overlooked.
What's that?
Which is about, like, when we're talking about has Joe Biden committed some kind of is guilty of being bribed.
Yes.
The one act which people can point to as potentially the case is the firing of the Ukrainian prosecutor Shokin, who was supposedly looking into Burisma, right? Which is where Hunter Biden Hunter Biden's on board. Now, we've talked at length about the fact that there are many, many independent people
Yes.
who at the time were saying, no, he wasn't looking into Burisma.
Yes, yeah.
He was doing the very direct opposite.
Exactly.
And that's why he was fired.
Yes.
Now but some people will say, oh, there's a conspiracy going. Joe Biden had a word to the EU. He had a word to the IMF.
Yeah.
He had a word to all these independent people. Whatever. I'm not going to buy that. I will talk about that at another time. But here's the thing. The piece of evidence they have, there's two pieces of evidence they rely upon.
Yep.
One is Shokin himself,
Yes.
who seems to be extremely unreliable.
Yes.
I wouldn't trust him in this case.
No.
on the question of his sacking for corruption. But the other thing is this video, which we've all seen 1,000 times. And let me play it for the 1,001st time for those who haven't seen it. This video here of Joe Biden in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, talking about when he got Shokin sacked.
I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Son of a bitch, she got fired. And so people go, oh, look at that. He's even admitting that he got him fired and he blackmailed the Ukrainian government with their aid money, etc. Okay. You know what the problem with that is, which just hasn't been mentioned once?
What is the problem with that?
Okay. One thing the problem with that, it can be summarized in one basic fact. It was told by Joe Biden. And we all know that Joe Biden is full of shit. We've talked about this many times. Joe Biden just this week said that he was at New York the day after 9/11.
Yes.
He wasn't there the entire week.
Yeah.
Let me count the ways in which Joe Biden, we've got Joe Biden saying that he was arrested in South Africa trying to visit Nelson Mandela. He wasn't arrested in South Africa. We got Joe Biden.
The speech that he plagiarized from Neil Kinnock.
Yeah, well,
Neil Kinnock of all people.
Yes. He and his dad supposedly watched two men kissing in the street in a small country town in the 1950s.
That's right. Yes.
I don't think they did. He marched with Martin Luther King. Do you remember that one? There were kids who wanted to touch his long blonde hair at the swimming pool. Do you remember that one?
Yes,
it goes on and on and on. No one knows that Joe Biden...
the Forrest Gump of Delaware.
It really is. No one knows that he's more full of shit than Republicans, right?
Yes.
But the one story that they treat like it came down from Mount Sinai on stone tablets is this story here. This one is 100% true. This is gospel. Well, you know what? I'll tell you why it's not true. It's really, really obvious. And that is... Do you remember the story? He says, I was in Kyiv. I said, you sack him by the time I leave or you're not getting your money. And son of a bitch, he was sacked. He was in Kyiv on December the 7th to the 8th, 2015.
Yep.
Shokin was sacked on March 29, 2016 by a parliamentary vote. Now, even if the parliamentary vote was controlled by the president, which it may well have been, there is 3 months between those, 4 months between when the meeting happened and when he was sacked.
Yep.
The story is bullshit.
Yep.
Is obviously bullshit. So I don't know whether Joe Biden had anything to do with this sacking. I don't know if if the State Department had worded them up or Joe Biden had a call with Poroshenko. I don't know.
Yes.
All I know is that particular clip that we've seen 1,000 times is clearly based on a fiction.
Yes.
And if he was talking about anything else, every single Republican would be chanting in chorus that it was obviously made up.
Yes.
But since it suits them, they're acting like it's gospel and it's their only evidence for the key question about this impeachment. So that is a problem.
Yeah. It's a big problem.
I hope. I'm going to mention that over and over and over again.
Until they bring you to Congress to testify.
Yes.
Hakeem, I hope you're listening.
Anyway, yeah, I was saying to you before we started talking, you haven't seen the Fetterman reaction, have you?
No.
This actually really annoys me, and we played it on Planet America, so I'm going to play it to you.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why it annoys me.
Ask you about this news that Speaker McCarthy has formally launched an impeachment or has said he's going to.
Oh my God,
direct-
really? Oh my gosh, it's devastating. Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it. Oh no.
We gotta run back to the office.
His poor staffer. Now, let me tell you why that annoys me. That annoys me, not because of the reaction. I thought it was actually very funny.
Yes.
But the reason why that annoys me is because I've been on Twitter trying to catch up with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing so much. Oh, Fetterman owned him. Oh, yeah, take that. Oh, destroyed by Fetterman.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I like Fetterman can stuff around if he wants.
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
care. But I am so sick of the juvenile when I say juvenile shit, I don't mean Fetterman.
Yeah.
I mean the Fetterman cheer squad.
Yes.
I mean all of us. I'm sick of the nicknames. I'm sick of the schoolyard bullshit and
Yeah.
people acting like that's debate. Like it's like cool. He can have his laugh.
Yes.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But just us acting like that's like people acting like that's actually devastating.
Yeah.
You just go, look, like he just made sarcastic noises. He didn't even say anything.
No, he did. Yeah.
Like-
he did it very effectively.
He did, but
Yeah.
but that was like in year 3. That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like he owned the schoolyard in year
Yes.
3. But beyond that, you use words
Yeah.
to try and be sarcastic. Like it just I just think he committed comedy crimes. That's all
He
I'm saying.
committed comedy
He committed
crimes.
comedy crimes. That's all I'm saying. Like he could have done that a lot
Yeah.
better. And
But-
yeah.
You know, I wasn't even aware of this.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of any of the reaction to it. You know why?
Why's that?
Because I'm not on Twitter
That
anymore.
is
I think
why.
this might be the
Sorry,
route.
X.
X. I think this might be the root problem here, Chaz.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I feel like we're about 2 years from a politician responding to a censorship motion with Amar Tushy and people going, whoa, snap. And like high fives and let's not do that. Let's not go down that path. Anyway, let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, anything else to say about the impeachment? Because I want to talk about the evidence another time.
Yeah. No, we've got plenty of time to talk about
We
this.
really
This
do.
is going to be going on for a
We
little
do.
while.
Okay, all right, let's move on. I can't believe I'm saying let's move on when I've got almost nothing prepared, but let's move on.
Okay.
Another update, Trump legal update.
Yes.
Let's talk about Georgia. And then we're going to talk about the 14th Amendment. I know you
Yes.
got a bit to say about that. But
Yeah.
but let's talk about Georgia. There's actually quite a bit of Georgia news this week. Firstly, in Georgia, Sidney Powell and Kenneth, he says Chesbro, I say cheese bro,
Yeah.
will go to trial together on October 23.
Right.
So that's what, a month away.
Yes.
And it's going to be televised. So that's going to
Awesome.
be cool.
Yes.
Hopefully, we'll get to see Kenneth Chesbro pronounce his own name.
Yes.
To get to the bottom of this
Chesbro.
this controversy.
I like chess bro because it just sounds like some really vile jock who plays chess.
Look, that's
It gets in people's faces while
I don't want to love that because if I do, someone's going to say no. It's Chesbro. Like, it's like they're trying to take what we love away from us, Dave.
Yeah.
I love cheese, bro. You love chess, bro.
Chess bro, yes.
It's going to be neither. But
Yeah.
all I will say is if he calls himself cheese, bro, on the stand,
yeah.
I'm going to petition for him to walk free immediately. It's a public service. He will he will have committed. Anyway,
You will have committed perjury, but
it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. Pardon the man. Pardon Cheese Bro, but only Cheese Bro. They're going to be subject to. They're both going for the federal removal thing.
yep.
Like so if they pull that off, then they won't be on trial on October
Well,
23.
if Meadows couldn't pull it off,
That's the next topic.
I find it hard to believe that they will.
That's the next topic. Meadows
Yes.
couldn't pull it off.
Meadows could not pull it
It's
off.
official. And it's not often I get something right, but I got that right.
Yeah.
Like for the exact reasons that I
Yes.
said, which is that the quote is from the judge, what the court must decide for purposes of federal officer removal is whether the actions Meadows took as a participant in the alleged enterprise were related to his federal role as White House Chief of Staff.
Yep.
And the actions in question were taken on behalf of the Trump campaign with an ultimate goal of affecting state election activities and procedures, i.e. messing with the presidential election results are state election activities.
That's it. And as we've discussed, that was, it was unlikely to succeed, but it was the most likely one to succeed. If he couldn't do it, then probably no one can.
Better start pronouncing the name Cheese, bro. Okay. Also, we heard a little bit more about the Georgia grand jury this week.
Yes.
They released some information about their deliberations, which was interesting. This is an area where I don't want to be right. From the very beginning when we were talking about potential charges on January 6th, my concern was always it just takes one Trump superfan to be in the jury.
Yes.
And you can have the strongest case in the world and you're getting nowhere.
Exactly.
It just takes one.
Yep.
Let's go to the grand jury, shall we?
Yeah.
There were 7 recommended charges against Trump.
Yes.
They had varying numbers in the grand jury from 18 to 22 for each of these charges.
Yeah.
Of those 7 charges, each one of those charges had exactly one dissenter.
Wow. Yeah.
We don't know if it was the same dissenter. Maybe it was a different person every time. We don't know. And trial juries only have 12 jurors, so there's less chance of drawing a Trump superfan. But
especially if it's confined to Fulton County.
But the bar to clear here in the grand jury was much lower than beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes.
It was only probable cause was required there.
Yeah.
And also, that's just ominous.
It is.
So we'll see what happens. But it just takes one. Even in the documents case in Florida, it just takes one.
Yep.
And they might lie. And when they're being vetted, they might lie, or maybe there'll be so many Trump superfans they run out of challenges.
Yes, yeah.
Like it just takes one.
They might lie. It's like, no, my grandson gave me this hat. I haven't even read what it says.
Yes. Just one more thing about the grand jury. This week we saw the grand jury indict another group of people.
Who was that?
They were 61 protesters.
Oh,
for
yes,
Cross
I
City.
saw this. Yes.
Yeah, same grand jury. Indicting 61 protesters for a racketeering case charge as well. Basically similar kinds of things to Trump. I mean, they weren't trying to steal an election. In this case, they were, quote, using websites, social media, and statements to traditional media to sow disinformation and propaganda to promote their extremist political agenda, legitimize their behavior, and recruit new members. Sounds kind of First Amendment-y.
Yeah, there's been a lot of uproar on the left about this.
Yeah.
Like, how can you refer to this stuff as criminal conspiracy? Like, there are people being indicted for providing lunch to these protesters. Yeah. So I wonder what the political effect of that is going to be. I mean, on the one hand, this increases the number of people who now become suspicious of the whole RICO practice in Georgia. You are among the people who has voiced concerns
This is what I was about to say.
with the way that it's used.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you could argue it gives Fani Willis political cover because she's like, no, I'm not just going after after Trump. Look, I'm going after the left as well.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I did raise it, but just to reiterate my concern about RICO in general.
Yeah.
And that and in particular Georgia RICO, which is particularly lax.
Particularly savage.
Yeah, I just think, sure, use it for its intention, for its original purpose, which is to get mafia bosses who keep their hands clean.
Yes.
That's the reason they have racketeering.
Yep.
Sure, use it for that, but I wish they would tighten it so it could pretty much only be used for that.
Yeah.
If you can charge, and I didn't like, I'd said at the time, and I'm going to say it again, I didn't like that they used a racketeering charge for Trump. I tried to analyze it in a dispassionate way.
Yes.
But I personally think if you can charge people for anything that's not racketeering, then you should. Like racketeering, I think just introduces a problematic element from a moral point of view.
Yes.
For any charge. I hate the way they use it. And this is a perfect example. So anyway, I just want to flag that.
Yep.
Jim Jordan has been trying to crack down on Fani Willis as well.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, he sent her a letter demanding that know about her funding, and he wanted a bunch of records from her because he suspected she'd been colluding with federal prosecution. Number one, that is actually fine to do. That's not against the law in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the knocks on the prosecutions is that they didn't coordinate, and so there's duplication between them.
Yes.
so that's kind of a weird thing for him to object to.
Yeah.
But also, what the hell does a state prosecution have to do with Jim Jordan? That's not his responsibility.
Yeah.
So he can butt out.
Yeah.
And I just put
No,
it,
Jim Jordan is chronically confused about things that are his responsibility and things that are not his responsibility. He loves getting into things that are not his responsibility. But let's think about something that might have been his responsibility, such as when he was an assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State University, where there was mass endemic sexual abuse taking place in the program. And this guy who hung around so much with the players that he earned the derisive nickname King of the Sauna, claims he was completely unaware of what was happening, even though about 10 wrestlers have said he absolutely knew what was going on. Now, that is something I would regard as possibly the concern of Jim Jordan, possibly a bit of business for Jim Jordan. But no, that's not what he's paying attention to.
Jim Jordan should probably have some questions about that.
Yeah, that's right. But are you aware that he has the nickname Jim Jordan, GYM? Jordan.
I am aware of the GYM Jordan.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of King of the Sauna.
Yeah,
I love
King
that.
of the Sauna.
Long may he reign.
Yeah.
In the sauna, but only in the sauna. Anyway, you'll like this. Fonnie Wallace has responded to his letter.
Yep.
A little less diplomatically than I would have if I was in her position.
Yeah.
She said, those who wish to avoid felony charges in Fulton County, Georgia, including violations of Georgia RICO law, should not commit felonies in Fulton County, Georgia. Your letter makes clear that you lack a basic understanding of the law, its practice, and the ethical obligations of attorneys general and prosecutors specifically. For a more thorough understanding of Georgia's RICO statute, its application, and similar laws in other states, I encourage you to read RICO State by State. As a non-member of the bar, you can purchase a copy for $249. Now, I'm not a big fan of prosecutors being smartasses, but this was a laugh or cry scenario,
look,
so she chose
that's
laughing.
Right. Yeah, look, Fonnie Willis, not diplomatic. No. I mean, she's been accused of Republicans of doing this for career purposes, but whatever she sees her career goals as being, it's not ultimately becoming the ambassador to somewhere.
No, that is clear.
Fuck you and your country. Yeah.
That's clear. Okay, so now we're up to the 14th Amendment. You wanted me to bring that up. So what do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So there's a lot going on in this. Just the two things that I wanted to note from this week are, first of all, that there's a Republican lawyer for three of the presidential rivals to Trump who has now joined the fray. This guy is Jason Torchinsky.
Yep.
He has reportedly actually been talking to at least one Democratic Secretary of State about getting Trump disqualified from the ballot. We don't know what the outcome of that was. But the point is that all of the motion that now we're seeing is really coming from the right on this. So it was as you pointed out, there have been these public interest groups that have been pushing this for a while and, learning how to push it. But, the real impetus for this recently came from that law review article, which is still open on my browser and I still have not read.
I still have not read it too.
Every time I see the scope and sweep of, I just think I should read that at some point, but I haven't read it. So, so that's coming from the right. And you can see that what is going on here is, obviously they hope that just the possibility of this might potentially be enough to get Republicans to reconsider Trump. That, if they can say, look, do you really want to vote in the primaries for a guy who might not end up on the ballot in a bunch of states? That's the threat. That's the, that is the hopeful threat. But that's going to be an empty threat because this week there was an op-ed by Jocelyn Benson, Secretary of State from Michigan, a Democrat. Obviously, Michigan has been a very contentious state in all of this. It is a state that is bringing its own charges against, fake electors.
Yes. Yep.
It's a state where it was very close in 2016, but then the margin actually blew out for Biden or relatively blew out to 150,000 votes. It's a state that has now gone to full Democratic control of everything. If there's any state where you might expect a Secretary of State to be receptive to this, might be Michigan. Jocelyn Benson says no. Jocelyn Benson says it is not the responsibility of secretaries of state like me to make this judgment. And she says this law review, she basically says this law review article is very interesting, but it's nothing that has actually been legally tested. And it's not up to secretaries of state like me. Now, she doesn't speak for every Democratic secretary of state out there, but I suspect that is how most of them feel.
Yeah, I've actually got an op-ed as well to refer to, which is probably worse news as well for those who are advocating for pushing the 14th Amendment, which we should actually just explicitly say, just in case for first-time listeners, says that for the 14th Amendment, Section 3, says that if you were engaged in an insurrection or paid or what was it, gave aid and comfort to people involved in insurrection or rebellion, then you're not eligible for office.
And Benson says at this point it is legally unproven that Trump engaged in insurrection or provided aid and comfort. She said, that might come out. She said that's the work that the House Judiciary Committee was doing, but that's been ended now. Yeah. She said that might come out in some of the criminal trials, but it is, it's legally unproven. Yeah.
Well, as you said, the most recent push started with these with Board and Paulson. Their names are these two right wing guys who wrote a law review article about that, a very lengthy article.
And part of their argument is that it doesn't have to be legally proven.
Yes,
it doesn't have to have been proven in court. Yeah.
Well, when they wrote that article, the first person to support them was a guy called Steve Calabrese. He's also on the right.
Yep.
Also, he founded the Federalist Society, co-founded the Federalist Society. And he got on board hard, and a lot of people joined the trip on board.
Yes.
After Calabrese was there. Well, Calabrese's just gotten off.
Oh, really?
And the reason he's gotten off is because of another op-ed. It's not often that you see an op-ed and you go, "Wow, that's completely changed my mind."
Yeah.
But it completely changed Calabrese's mind. And having said that, I read the op-ed, and it kind of changed my mind as well. I mean, I already had concerns about it, but it made me realize that my concerns were not the main concerns.
Okay.
There are completely other concerns, which all of us have missed, except for the writer of the op-ed, who is Michael McCasey, ex-Attorney General for Bush.
Okay.
And he knows the law a little bit. When you're Attorney General for Bush, you need to know the law to work your way around the law.
Yeah.
Anyway. And I found this argument quite convincing. And so I'm going to throw it to you guys and see what you think.
Okay.
I suspect that we're going to be hearing this argument again from the lips of John Roberts in about about 2 or 3 months' time.
Yep.
Anyway, he says, yes, everyone's talking about whether Trump engaged in insurrection or whether it was indeed an insurrection. He said there are preliminary questions that need to be addressed before you even get there. And he made the point that the 14th Amendment, Section 3 says it applies to people, quote, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have ... That bit I just read is the bit which everyone skips past.
Right.
Because the bit before it is about whether you engage in insurrection.
Yep.
And the bit after it's about not being president.
Yep.
But they skip these middle words which don't seem to be of any relevance to people.
Yes.
But they might be the most important words.
Right.
Because according to McCasey, Trump, it's not according to McCasey, according to anyone, Trump was not a member of Congress. He was not a member of the state legislature either. And he was not an executive or judicial officer of any state. So what that leaves from that list we just read, that it applies to, is an officer of the United States. Let me read the quote again. Who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, maybe, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, So the only one that might apply to him is an officer of the United States, right?
Yes.
If it doesn't, this doesn't apply to the president. So let's talk about the officer of the United States.
Yes.
Is the president an officer of the United States? It turns out that term has an established meaning in the law.
Oh, does it?
It does. It means appointed officials, not elected officials.
Wow. So they have somehow managed in the 14th Amendment to write this clause that doesn't include
the president.
And
And there's more evidence of this. In
Wow.
US versus Muat,
I had no idea about
neither
this.
did I.
Yeah.
In US versus Muat, not that Steve Calabrese until he read this op-ed. In US versus Muat, 1888. So that's an important year
Yes.
or time because that's when that's contemporaneous with the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court said that unless a person in the service of the government holds his place by virtue of an appointment, he is not, strictly speaking, an officer of the United States. Roberts backed that up in Free Enterprise Fund versus Public Company Accounting Oversight Board in 2010. He said, the people do not vote for the, quote, officers of the United States. So Roberts is aware of this. McCasey also noted that the oath for senators and House Reps and all, quote, and all executive and judicial officers of the United States is in Article 6.
Right.
The president's oath is in Article 2.
Yes.
So that oath, quote, as an officer of the United States, that Section 14 refers to, is in Article 6, and it doesn't include the president explicitly. I think that's a pretty convincing argument, to be honest.
Oh, man.
So,
This is the most consequential technicality of all time.
yeah, well, but I mean, I don't think it's an accident.
No,
I don't.
no.
I think they intended to not.
Yes, not include the president. No, that's pretty clear.
Yeah. Look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all furphy. Maybe McCasey's wrong. Maybe Calabrese's wrong. But my suspicion is, if and when this gets to the Supreme Court, and I think the people who are trying hard to get to the Supreme Court are going to find a way to get it there.
Yes, yeah.
I think when it does, I am willing to bet the second time I've ever been right on this podcast is when I say those words are going to come out John Roberts' mouth. Yeah. I think this is the grounds by which they get rid of the 14th Amendment claim.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first.
Okay.
Unless you read McCasey's editorial in the Wall Street Journal, which I doubt you did.
No, I did not. I was not aware of this. This is complete news to me.
Man, this is a consequential PEP.
It is. Yeah.
Solving and creating problems for the entire world. You know what it's time for? Stats Nugget. Woo! That's the siren of the Georgia RICO case.
Yes.
Woo! The Georgia police arresting people for RICO protesting. Dave.
Yes.
I got a question for you.
Yep.
You're probably going to get this. Which country is the number one exporter of cars in the world this year?
Germany.
No, you didn't get it. Okay, China.
Oh, okay.
In the first half of the year, China exported 2.34 million vehicles in the first half of the year.
Yep.
That's Japan did like 2.02 or something. They were second.
Yep.
And that's quite a jump for China. They were, in the year 2020, they were number 15 in the world. And they've jumped up to number 1.
Yeah.
They have 3 big car companies. Can you name any of them?
No.
I couldn't either. They had Geely, Chery, and Great Wall.
Okay. Oh, I've heard of Great Wall.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
These are the biggest car companies in the world.
Wow.
Like China is.
Yeah.
China is the number 1 exporter of cars in the world. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really interesting.
That is really interesting.
I mean, it's partly because of the electric phenomenon.
Yes.
Like they kind of own, with the exception of Tesla, they obviously they own the electric market.
Yes.
But yeah, how about that?
There you go.
Yeah, China. So that's a stats nugget.
Okay.
A quick one. But
Yes.
Now we're getting into some of the areas I haven't prepared incredibly well. I want to talk about Elon Musk and Starlink. Now, there was a bit of a controversy earlier in the week. It might be last week now, from his biographer, Walter Isaacson.
Yes.
Who seems to have written a book very much along the lines of what you just foreshadowed earlier in this podcast.
Yes.
Suggesting Elon Musk would destroy the world if he could.
Yes.
Yeah, well, maybe he will be able to soon. And one of the claims he made, I'll just read the section. It's talking about Ukraine wanting to launch an attack in Crimea.
Yes, on the Black Sea Fleet.
Yeah, on the Black Sea Fleet.
Yeah.
Throughout the evening and into the night, Musk personally took charge of the situation, allowing the use of Starlink for the attack. He concluded could be a disaster for the world. So he secretly told his engineers to turn off coverage within 100 kilometers of the Crimean coast. As a result, when the Ukrainian drone subs got near the Russian fleet in Sevastopol. Sevastopol, thanks. They lost connectivity and washed ashore harmlessly. Okay, so we got that. He's suggesting they launched the attacks and then found that Musk had withdrawn permission for them to use Starlink. Okay,
Yeah.
so Musk replied.
Yes.
He said there was an emergency request from government authorities to activate Starlink all the way to Sevastopol. The obvious intent being to sink most of the Russian fleet at anchor. If I'd agreed to their request, then SpaceX would be explicitly complicit in a major act of war and conflict escalation. So Musk is saying, he's not just justifying himself, he's also saying Walter Isaacson is lying because Walter Isaacson suggested they launched the attacks and then found I withdrew permission when in reality, they never had permission. They asked for the permission and I never gave it to them.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
That's what Musk is saying.
And then Walter Isaacson clarified.
Yes.
He said, to clarify on the Starlink issue, the Ukrainians thought coverage was enabled all the way to Crimea, but it was not. They asked Musk to enable it for their drone sub-attack on the Russian fleet. Musk did not enable it because he thought, probably correctly, that would cause a major war. Can you hear that beep, 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 backing up sign there? Now, that sounds dodgy to me from Isaacson. Like it just clearly, I'm not sure I trust his judgment if he just clarifies the facts so easily like that. But anyway, Musk was still criticized regardless, even with that version. The Ukrainian presidential advisor Podolyak said, by not allowing Ukrainian drones to destroy part of the Russian fleet via Starlink interference, Elon Musk allowed this fleet to fire caliber missiles at Ukrainian cities. As a result, civilians and children are being killed. So that's the kind of criticism. And Musk since then has changed his story in a fairly dodgy way as well. There's no heroes in this story.
No.
He said, at the time this happened, the satellite network in the region around Crimea was actually turned off. Now, the reason it was turned off, actually originally was because the United States had sanctions against Crimea, and we were not allowed to actually turn on connectivity without explicit government approval. He said he would have turned the system on if I had received a presidential directive to do so. The Ukrainian government is not in charge of US people or companies. That's not how it works. So now it's Biden's fault. It's 1 second Elon Musk is saving the world. Next second he's just following orders, right? So I'm not sure who we trust about this. But the reason I brought this up is not because everything I just said is really cool and interesting. It's because this entire story is a beat up for several reasons. Number one, there's been a lot of discussion about whether you should be relying on a billionaire in these circumstances, a capricious billionaire who, according to Dave an hour ago, would happily destroy the world if he could. It turns out that back in June, the defense secretary bought 400 to 500 Starlink terminals to control for Ukraine anyway. So Musk does not control it.
Yes.
The government does. So that's a whole furphy.
Right.
Like that's the first thing, right? The
also, didn't Ukraine actually carry out this attack?
That's the second thing. That's the second thing. It's did you read the Ann Applebaum piece, or did you just know that? Ann Applebaum wrote about this in the Atlantic.
No, I think I read someone writing about the Ann Applebaum piece. Yes.
Yeah, because she talked to some of the Ukrainian engineers involved. She did a bit of original reporting here.
Yes.
Number one, not all the drones involved were lost. That was not true. Some returned back to base undamaged. But yes, as you said, they launched the same attack a few weeks later.
Yes.
Using just a different communication system. They exist.
Yeah.
Starlink's not the only one on Earth. They did hit their targets.
Yes.
They put one Russian frigate out of commission.
Yes.
They damaged at least one submarine, at least two other boats.
Yeah.
According to them, the Russian naval commanders were so spooked by the attack they basically stuck in the harbor from then on, becoming way more cautious, not blocking Ukrainian grain transports.
Yeah.
The quote, we made them scared, the engineer said. So Musk to be fair, was wrong. There was no nuclear war.
No,
after
that's right.
the attack.
Yeah.
But also, when you say civilians and children aren't being killed solely because of Musk's decisions, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because the attack went ahead.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the outcome would have been better the first time around. Maybe it would have been more of a Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
But still, I feel like the Ukrainian defense spokesperson would know that attack happened.
Yeah.
It was a little bit mischievous for him to not mention that.
Yes.
So I just want to raise that for that reason.
Yes.
I'm not a huge defender of Elon Musk generally.
No.
But in this case, I think he's been verbaled a bit.
Well,
it's unfair.
I mean, my view on this is I have just tried to avoid everything about this new biography of Musk because even if it's critical of him, all it's doing is making people pay attention to him, which is what he wants. That is Musk's paperclip, right? Yeah, so I have not been inclined at this point. I mean, this story suddenly became very hard to avoid, but I never had very much interest in this. Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, look, I'll say what I was thinking. I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah.
But I just want to be transparent, be fully transparent.
Yes.
Part of the reason I've got a problem with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
There's two reasons.
Yeah.
Because I do have a problem with Elon Musk.
Yes.
I admit it. I admit
yeah.
it. You need to be transparent.
Yeah.
I got two reasons. Number one, because I really care about free speech. And I particularly hate when people act like they're free speech warriors when they're the direct opposite.
Yeah.
And he is the direct opposite.
Yeah.
And to be fair, pretty much every time someone acts like a free speech warrior in public, they're usually the opposite.
Yes.
And I know I just said I'm into free speech.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm the direct opposite too, but I don't think so. You can judge. You can judge for yourself. But that's one thing. And the second thing is that, look, I know Asperger's probably doesn't exist. Like as a diagnosis, it no longer exists. Like there's just the spectrum.
Yes.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Elon Musk is self-diagnosed as Asperger's.
Yes.
And I was diagnosed with Asperger's.
Oh, really?
When I was a kid. Back when it was a real thing,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
Now I've had that taken off me. I'm
undiagnosed.
just a weird guy. But I particularly object to Elon Musk constantly referring to himself, well, not constantly, but referring to himself as the reason for all his foibles having Asperger's.
Yeah, making it part of his terrible personal brand.
Yeah. I am personally offended by that.
Yeah.
And I do, and so he annoys me. So anyway, I'll just declare it. But anyway, yes, I want to introduce the idea of just a random toilet break. I think I told you that one of our listeners suggested that because it's quite a dense podcast.
Sure.
And just every now and then just play a clip as a toilet break.
Okay.
So I'm gonna play a clip. I thought DeSantis had given up the woke thing. Apparently not.
Never going to give that up.
Apparently not. Well, at least his super PAC hasn't. This is a new ad from his super PAC. I'm just making sure.
Definitely go to the toilet.
What they're trying to argue is that the biggest proponent of wokeness in America is Donald Trump.
Why do liberals have to ruin everything? Pushing their transgender insanity everywhere. Cheerleading, your daughter's locker room, Sports Illustrated, even the Miss Universe competition. That was Donald Trump's doing.
Can transgender women compete?
Yes. Trump let biological men compete in his women's beauty pageant. Now look where we are. Enough of this crap. It's time to end the insanity.
We're not going to let you impose an agenda on our kids. We're going to stand up for our kids. We're going to make sure to do it right. That's what we're going to do. Yeah.
Ron DeSantis for president.
I hope you enjoyed your toilet break. I hope you are freshly vacated and very comfortable. Apparently, where we are, look where we are now, is because Donald Trump said he would allow biological men who are transgender women to compete in the Miss Universe competition. I'm not sure that is the reason why we are where we are now.
No.
Do you think that's going to convince any Trump supporters that they should not vote for Trump?
I don't think so. No.
No. I don't think they're going to think he's actually pro-trans.
I mean, back in the 2016 Republican debates, I remember him saying Caitlyn Jenner could use whatever bathroom she wanted in Trump Tower. And my read on Trump's support of LGBTQ rights is that it's always been extraordinarily specific to Caitlyn Jenner. Yeah. Anyway. No, I don't think this is going to change anybody's mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something which I couldn't get into Planet America, but to me, this is the thing which I'm most annoyed about this week.
Okay. What are you annoyed about, Chaz?
I'm annoyed about Governor Michelle Lewin Grisham. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. She's the governor of New Mexico.
Yes.
When I say I'm sure you know, I don't mean the listener, I mean Dave. Dave absolutely knows where I'm going with this.
Yes, because he texted me about it.
Yeah, but also this just got me written all over it.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Because if I got one pet peeve, it's the abuse of emergency orders.
Yes.
And here we go. All right, she issued an executive order suspending the right to carry guns openly or with concealed carry on public property for anyone other than law enforcement or licensed security. People can use them privately at a gun range, or they can keep them in a lockbox at their home.
This is, by the way, within the city and county of Albuquerque.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. The county's called Bernalillo County, and
Yes.
that's the city of Albuquerque and its surrounds. Actually, it's not just about Albuquerque. It's about all cities or counties averaging 1,000 or more violent crimes per 100,000 residents per year since 2021.
Oh, okay.
Which happens to be Albuquerque.
Right.
Right. And it's for 30 days, just for 30 days.
Yes.
But then she said in her press conference, and I quote, "I bet it's not over in 30 days."
That's probably not what you want to say.
So she reserved the right to keep
Yes.
that rolling on for another 30 days, until the pandemic of gun violence was over.
Yeah.
Now you might think, oh, poor dears, they can't carry their guns outside. But that, in America, that's a pretty fundamental constitutional right, the gun ownership. It is. It's the Second Amendment.
Well, since 2009.
Sure. But I'm not saying you can't have gun laws.
Yeah.
But, gun laws involve state legislatures.
Yes.
They involve someone other than the governor just
Yes.
going,
Yeah.
we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So it's, now you might, but the point about this is, whether you think it's a bullshit right or not,
Yeah.
it's still, as recognized by the Supreme Court, a constitutional right. And she's just abrogated it, right?
Yeah. Well, where's Hunter Biden's right then? Where's Hunter Biden's right to have a gun in DC? Oh, that's right. His own dad was responsible for taking that away.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think I said this on the air on Planet America. I might say this off the air.
Oh,
to John.
too spicy for Planet America.
No, I don't remember why saying records on air or off air. We just record and record and record.
Yeah.
But, like the Supreme Court is currently considering this question about whether the law that applied to Hunter Biden actually is constitutional or not, right?
Oh, really?
Hunter Biden might be the person to challenge it. His lawyer is really bullshit, right? He's got a good lawyer who's really bullshit. He may well take this to the Supreme Court and be responsible for the axing of Joe Biden's law.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be interesting? But anyway, let's get back to this. The fact is, if you can suspend one right, you can suspend another right. Now, you might go, oh, no, come on. She's not going to do. You can't do that. You can't say that. You're just jumping to conclusions. Well, Grisham, who declared this a public health issue, has explicitly declared everything a public health issue.
Everything is a public health issue. Gun violence is a public health issue. Poverty is a public health issue. Environmental consequences from energy is a public health issue. All of these disenfranchised populations, all of the equity barriers are all public health issues.
I particularly love how the woman on the left there spent the whole time nodding, going, yeah, everything is a public health issue. All these things are public. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, great. Give us more of that. So you could easily apply the same logic to anything. Like she's explicitly said everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can she do this legally is the question. She told the New York Times, gun violence is an epidemic, therefore it's an emergency. Well, that's very simple. So what's the emergency she's referring to? There were 3 shootings, a 13-year-old girl on July 28, a 5-year-old girl on August 14, and an 11-year-old boy on September 6, as well as 2 other mass shootings earlier this year. Small mass shootings, but still mass shootings.
Yes, yeah.
So 3 kids in 3 months and 2 mass shootings in a year. That's just every city in America every time, right? And that's what she cited, those 5 incidents, right? She elaborated on how she could justify this.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency, this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency we can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those two. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs.
How often have we heard that argument in the comments of an article about guns?
Yeah.
Like, she is just a YouTube commenter, not our YouTube.
No, of course not.
Because our YouTube commenters are the best commenters on YouTube. But like I don't know, Dave Rubin video or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, that is poor analysis from her. It's just, I mean, sure, you can have a debate. No one's saying you can't have a debate.
Yeah.
And if you want to pass a law, pass a law.
Yes.
But like, don't unilaterally declare it.
No.
That's the thing, right? Anyway, okay, so let's go into the details of the emergency law in New Mexico. New Mexico's Public Health Emergency Response Act defines a public health emergency as an extremely dangerous condition or a highly infectious or toxic agent, including a threatening communicable disease that poses an imminent threat of substantial harm. That's not much help, is it?
No. What about the communicable disease of bad analysis?
Look, there are other acts she could maybe. She cited all of these, by the way.
Yeah.
There's another one that she cited that you could maybe rely on.
Mm-hmm.
The All Hazard Emergency Management Act said gun violence, quote, constitutes a man-made disaster causing or sorry. They didn't say gun violence did this.
Yeah.
It deals with things that can constitute a man-made disaster causing or threatening widespread physical or economic harm
Yep.
that is beyond local control. She said that's gun violence.
Yes.
That's probably closer.
Yep.
Still a little bit dodgy, I'd say, but it's at least closer. It's at least in the ballpark. Also, the New Mexico's Public Health Act defines defines one of the conditions as an infection, a disease, a syndrome, a symptom, an injury, or other threat that is identifiable on an individual community level and can reasonably be expected to lead to adverse health effects in the community. That's the public health emergency.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's been shot either, to be honest. But anyway, they're her justifications.
Yeah.
And all three of them trigger emergency powers. The All Hazard Emergency Management Act, to be fair, does specifically say that the governor can prohibit the possession of firearms or any other deadly weapon by a person in any place other than their place of residence or business, except for peace officers.
Yep.
So presumably she relied on that.
Yeah.
If you believe that it describes
Yes.
an emergency,
Yeah.
which I don't think it does.
Yeah.
Right? But if the emergency was legit, she could maybe get away with that.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything to say so far before I go on?
No.
No? Okay. Let me tell you why this doesn't make any sense as a response. Let's leave aside the law. The
Yes.
fact is
Yeah,
clearly has no legal justification. Let's talk about the practical justification. Okay?
Yes.
Would this fix the gun problem? No. In fact, she admits it wouldn't fix the gun problem. Let's go to the tape.
Madam Governor, do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No. But here's what I do think. It's a pretty resounding message.
It's not going to actually stop criminals who are the ones who use the guns to shoot people carrying guns, but it's a very resounding message.
Yeah, look, I mean, even those of us who might be sympathetic to this as an aim, when she starts talking about it as a message and a way of starting a debate, like, no, that's... there are messages and there are debates, and they don't involve invoking emergency powers that you could easily see someone in the opposite position invoking them to shut down protests and things like that.
Absolutely.
So... this is one of the notable things about this is that she does not have very many allies.
No, she doesn't.
In this fight. And completely undercutting it from the beginning is the fact that the sheriff, who is a Democrat, has said he's not going to enforce this.
That's right. Yep.
And
I got a quote from him. The temporary ban challenges the foundation of our Constitution, which I swore an oath to uphold. That's the county sheriff.
Yes.
Yeah.
People who are some of the country's most adamant advocates for gun control are also saying that this doesn't warrant trampling on the Constitution.
Yes.
So David Hogg,
yes,
of Parkland shooting fame, has said, issued a very terse statement.
I support gun safety, but there is no such thing as a state public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution.
Yes. Ted Leo from Hawaii, who's always one of the most outspoken gun control advocates, has also said the same thing.
He has.
So she's got no allies in this.
Sorry, can I say some other people who she doesn't have an ally? Because just hold that thought.
Yeah.
The Albuquerque police chief also said he won't enforce it.
Yes.
Also, the Democratic district attorney, Sam Bregman, who she appointed, said he wouldn't enforce it. He said, as an officer of the court, I cannot and will not enforce something that is clearly unconstitutional. This office will continue to focus on criminals of any age that use guns in the commission of a crime. The Albuquerque mayor said he will not enforce it. And also, the New Mexico State Police that Grisham supposedly controls are refusing to issue citations. Their spokesperson said, I think all of us agree this is unconstitutional, except for Grisham apparently.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that have to be done to control crime in Albuquerque, and this isn't one of them. And worst of all, just one more thing, the guy who's supposed to defend this law in court, the New Mexico Attorney General, released a very long letter saying, I am writing to inform you that my office will not defend your administration in the above referenced cases challenging the order, though I recognize my statutory obligation as New Mexico's chief legal officer to defend state officials when they're sued in their official capacity. My duty to uphold and defend the constitutional rights of every citizen takes precedence. Simply put, I do not believe that the emergency order will have any meaningful impact on public safety, but more importantly, I do not believe it passes constitutional muster. So not many allies. Go on.
No. So, well, she got the debate she wanted. I mean, it didn't last very long, but basically all of her potential allies have said no. And I don't like this because it's anti-political. Passing things by emergency decrees, positing it as a solution to an urgent problem, even while acknowledging it's not, that is anti-political. The fact is, if there's ever going to be a solution, it has to be a political one. As Weber said, politics is the slow boring of hard boards. You don't just circumvent it in this way. I can't imagine any positive political effects coming from this, although I can foresee some pretty negative ones. We've had a lot of New Mexico content in this podcast.
We need a New Mexico corner.
Not necessarily, but I had a friend.
You know what?
I have a friend.
This is going to become the New Mexico episode. It's not the Just Do Something episode. It's the New Mexico episode.
It's the biggest blast in New Mexico since the nuclear experiments.
If you know anyone from New Mexico, tell them to tune in.
I've got a friend from New Mexico
Okay,
who I knew in Michigan, and he was telling me that because he lived quite near downtown Albuquerque, and he said that the mayor of Albuquerque had banned them from filming Cops there, because Cops was getting filmed so often in Albuquerque that it was making the whole city look bad. So this is the kind of place that we're talking about, a place where the team that films Cops comes because it's a happy hunting ground. Like, the kinds of problems that Albuquerque has are not going to be undone by an emergency public health order.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I need to correct you, though. You said she has no allies. She does have one ally.
Oh, God.
And this ally should really give her cause for reflection.
Who's that?
It's a conservative ally, actually. It's Michael Knowles. Now you might go, hang on, Michael Knowles. Okay, most people won't know who he is. He's a pundit for the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
He's very pro-gun.
Yeah,
And I go, well, hang on, why would he support this?
Yeah.
He said, I'll quote him, unpopular opinion, civil leaders do in fact have emergency authority to suspend temporarily many legal rights. Not saying I agree with Grisham's decision in this particular instance, but in principle, she has a point. And she even has some credibility on the issue since New Mexico is relatively tough on crime. They've single-handedly brought cops there.
Wow.
But,
Yes, yeah.
He didn't say that. Dave said that. But anyway, so why is he saying this? Why would he support her?
Because he wants Donald Trump to be able to suspend the Constitution.
And
change the dates of elections.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, Knowles is a guy who's so wedded to winding the clock back on rights.
Yeah.
He literally wants to bring back the Middle Ages. Now,
Yes.
you might think, hang on, you're just putting words in his mouth there. You're being unfair.
Yeah.
You're being partisan, Chaz. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Roll the tape.
Oh, wow.
Americans are as conservative today as they were back in 2012, which is fine, and it's a good start given how much more liberal the country had become since 2012. But if 2012 is the end point, then we might as well pack it in, guys. I do not want America to be as socially conservative as it was in 2012. I want our civilization to be as socially conservative as we were in 1220. Okay, forget it. I don't even want the 1950s. I don't even want the 1880s. I want 1220. I think that would be a good spot to land at. At the very least, I think we ought to be as conservative as we were before all the modern ideologies started corroding our civilization.
Just to be clear there, you thought, he's just using a bit of wordplay. 2012, 1220. But no, he backed over it. He goes, no, I don't want the 1890s.
Yes.
That's Michael Knowles.
Yeah.
Right? And so if that's your ally,
when
you're acting like an emperor,
yeah,
you need to reevaluate. You really, really
wondering how much he would actually enjoy 1220.
Yeah. I feel like...
No guns then.
Yeah. I feel like Michael Knowles would have found himself on the sharp end of a lance back in 1220.
Well, I don't think he would have, because those were the weapons of the nobility. I think he would have found himself on the end of a pitchfork.
Sure. Fair enough. I got a few more things to say about this.
Yeah, but I swear there is there's a point here that there is a constitutional school of thought that says the president in particular has all of these prerogative powers because of the fact that the Constitution says that, among other things, the president has to do are to do whatever's necessary to. I can't remember what the exact phrasing of it is, but it's basically do whatever is necessary to carry out the laws, which is often interpreted as. There are things in the about which the Constitution is silent, and sometimes the president has to act outside it to maintain the system of law. And also in the presidential oath of office, it talks about doing what you need to do to preserve the Constitution, which is interpreted by the presidentialist school, who believe in this prerogative power, as sometimes the president has to act outside of the Constitution to preserve the Constitution. This seems to me like a kind of state-level version of that. Yeah, basically executive prerogative power. There are some things that endanger the entire polity itself. The executive has to act to do that. And I don't agree with that at the presidential level. I certainly don't agree with it at the state level.
Yeah, the thing I find interesting about this... Oh, by the way, I didn't finish going, but the reason why this is practically nonsense as well, because... Actually, let me just say that, just in case you're curious. Even the victims that she chose as her examples are terrible examples. The 13-year-old girl who was killed was by a 14-year-old friend in a small town.
Yeah.
He's not meant to have a gun.
Yeah.
Okay, the order doesn't affect that.
Yeah.
Not in Albuquerque either.
No.
The 5-year-old girl was killed in a drive-by shooting. The drive-by shooting guys, they're not going to be paying attention to that order. The 11-year-old was shot in a road rage incident in Albuquerque. Okay, so that's one. That's one that would have been covered by this order.
Yeah,
okay? That person wouldn't have had a gun.
Yeah.
In Albuquerque. The mass shooting was an 18-year-old high school student that wasn't in Albuquerque. They shouldn't have had a gun, and they weren't in Albuquerque. The other mass shooting was a gangbang shooting in Albuquerque. So it wasn't Albuquerque, but it was gangland. And they would have been carrying their guns anyway, even with the order. So only 2 of the 5 crimes were in Albuquerque, which is where the law was meant to have an effect, and where the order applied. And only one of them would have been affected by the order.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was complete impractical as well. It wouldn't achieve what she wanted. But the other thing, the thing I find interesting about this, I want to get back to, is that this is, like I alluded to it before when I said this is what commenters say, but it's also what I hear all the time in Australia when with the gun shootings, and people go, why don't they just do something? Why don't they just do something? Why don't they just get rid of the guns? Just do anything. They do nothing. Every time there's a shooting, they do nothing. They talk about thoughts and prayers, and then they do nothing. Why doesn't someone just do something? Well, now we've seen why someone doesn't just do something. This is exactly what she did. She just did something. I believe at one point in time, in her press conference, I might have even played it. I think she said at one point in time explicitly, I just need to do something.
If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something.
That's why people don't do something, because there's the rule of law.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. I know it's frustrating when people use the rule of law to achieve nothing. And I want to achieve things, but you don't throw out the rule of law just to do something. Honestly. Anyway, And then obviously there's a context. Like I said, I hate people abusing emergency laws.
Yes, yep.
There's so much. We've talked about this. So many examples on this
Yep.
podcast. Let's start with the Democrats. There's the case of DACA, which was protecting children who came as illegal immigrants when they were little
Yep.
kids from deportation. There was Biden's student debt forgiveness program. There was Biden extending Trump's eviction moratorium.
Yes.
All three of them, they had people in the administration explicitly saying, we do not have the constitutional right to do this before they then did it anyway.
Yeah.
Like they just completely just ran roughshod of the Constitution. Trump explicitly declared an emergency to appropriate money for his wall.
Yes.
It was just bullshit.
Yes.
And then he didn't build the wall anyway.
Yeah.
So which is even worse.
Yeah.
He then declared national security emergency so he could pass steel tariffs.
Yes.
Which, by the way, are still there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Biden. And then let's not forget this quote. Who you reckon said this? Take the guns first. Go through due process second.
Who said that?
Trump.
Wow.
He was talking about red flag laws.
Yeah.
So Republicans, they really can't be calling her a tyrant too much. I mean, I think the tyrant rhetoric is well overblown because it's not much of a tyranny in New Mexico when literally everyone is ignoring her.
Yes, yeah.
But it's bad.
Yes.
Anyway. I should say how that story ends. It went to court. She wasn't defended by her attorney general, and she lost, surprisingly.
Yeah, there you go.
Biden appointed judge put an injunction on the order, and it's going to be adjudicated soon. And obviously, she'll lose. So that's the end of that. Do you have anything else to say about that?
Nope.
You want to talk about JFK? Talk to me about JFK.
Yes. So there's been an interesting and surprising development in the JFK assassination.
He's not dead anymore?
over the last week. So this has been a big year for followers of the JFK assassination because this was the final release of the documents ordered by Biden. Although there are still 4,000 documents being withheld, and a federal judge said they could continue to be withheld, probably will be for all time. Now, just backing up a little bit.
Yes.
The original release date of all of these documents was supposed to be 2029. Now, do you remember Oliver Stone's movie JFK from 1991?
I do remember it, yes.
Right. So you remember the final scene from that where Kevin Costner is saying, one day my children will be able to go to the National Archive in 2029 and demand that the government hand over everything they know.
I remember vaguely.
Yeah.
It's very moving.
That movie, which is a wildly entertaining movie, with some pretty wild conspiracy theories in it. Even though not everyone agreed with the conspiracy theories, to put it mildly, it did actually prompt Congress to demand earlier release of the documents. It demanded that they be released by 2017. Now, that didn't happen because there were all bits of it have been released since 2017, but there were all kinds of documents that were withheld. So this year was supposed to be the final release, and there was really nothing in there for people who wanted to finally decisively overturn the official narrative. But then last week, the New York Times publishes this interview with one of the Secret Service agents who was there at the time, who is releasing a memoir called The Final Witness.
How are they still alive?
He's called John Landis. He was 28 at the time.
Okay.
He's 88 years old now. And the Times said, yeah, he's old, but he's lucid and, speaks very clearly. He has been working with a lawyer and author of history books called John Robineau on this on this memoir. And why is this significant? Well, because he says that the bullet that has become known as the magic bullet was not actually found where the official narrative says it was found. Just backing up once again. So there were 2 or 3 shots fired in the Kennedy assassination. The major controversy has always been about the fact about the bullet that actually wasn't the fatal bullet. So when you have a look at the Zapruder film, which is the only really extant, complete visual record of it, you can see John Connally, who's the governor of Texas, who was riding in the car in front of Kennedy, being wounded 1.6 seconds after Kennedy is wounded. And later on, a bullet was found on John Connally's hospital stretcher. And the official theory about this is that there was this one bullet that passed through the back of Kennedy's neck, then hit Connally in multiple spots. So this is known as the single bullet. The reason why the single bullet theory is significant is because Lee Harvey Oswald would not have had enough time to actually reload the rifle. That it's determined would have taken a minimum of 2.3 seconds. So that leaves two possibilities. Either one bullet hit both men, causing the wounds that were observed in the Zapruder film, or there was another shooter somewhere, right? So this is the possibility that discounts the other shooter idea. Now, this was, the Warren Commission came down on this as the official explanation. It's important to note they never claimed that this was proven, right? They claimed that it was plausible and that they were siding with this. There was another investigation in 1979 that said it was that it was more likely that there was a second shooter. But and you know, people have had a lot of doubts, to put it mildly, about magic bullet theory. It's not just the fact that this bullet did so much damage and seemed to have this very unlikely trajectory. So Kevin Costner's character lampoons this in JFK. But it's the fact that when the bullet was found, it had only lost one of its 160 grains. Right. So this bullet that did all of this damage and flew all over the place emerged in almost pristine condition on John Connally's stretcher. Right. So it's understandable that people have their doubts about the magic bullet. Now along comes John Landis and says, look, I was the one who found it, and it wasn't in John Connally. It was actually in the seat of the limo behind Kennedy. And he said, in all of the confusion, I thought, oh, I don't want anyone souveniring this bullet. I'd better remove it. And I put it on John F. Kennedy's stretcher so that someone would find it. And he can't really explain how it then got to John Connally's stretcher, although his theory is that the two stretchers were pushed together and, you know, when they bumped, like the bullet bounced from one to the other. Okay. Yeah, this is already sounding very, very weird.
Yes.
And now, I don't know if you remember, in JFK, the movie, this very issue of how the bullet got onto John Connally's stretcher features. There is this character whose face you don't see placing the bullet on the hospital stretcher at Parkland Hospital. So this is a big issue for people who don't believe the official narrative. And John Landis' story just confuses it enormously, right? Now, it certainly does seem to suggest that the single bullet theory is incorrect. If what he's saying, because if it is correct, then that bullet never even hit Connally in the first place. There must have been a second shooter. If he's correct, though, plenty of people doubt Landis's account. Okay, so Gerald Posner, who was the author of the big anti-conspiracy theory book, Case Closed from 1993, says, look, people's memories are not known for improving over time.
Sure.
And he's 88 years old now. This actually contradicts the official evidence he gave immediately after the shooting.
Okay.
Now, he wasn't interviewed by the Warren Commission, but he did give two statements to investigators where he did not mention this pretty important detail of finding one of the bullets.
That sounds pretty sus.
Yeah. Now, his defense is, look, this was very confusing and very traumatic. And he's only recently, it was only in 2014 that he started telling anybody about this. And you can actually imagine that if he had, you know, done this, to put it mildly, very unorthodox thing of retrieving a critical piece of evidence and just kind of putting it somewhere, you can imagine that shame and embarrassment might stop him from actually revealing that at the time. He also says, because his specific detail with as a Secret Service agent was to Kennedy's family. He had to look after Jackie Kennedy in the wake of the shooting. So it was a very, very traumatic period. He said that when he gave his official statements, he hadn't slept for days. He was, he was completely traumatized. But anyway, so it's really hard to know whether to believe him now. Judging by your face, I'm thinking you.
I do not believe him.
You don't believe him now. I don't know what motive he would have though now for age 88 coming through.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not saying that he's got malicious purposes. I'm thinking like
he probably
like the guy said, your memory doesn't improve with age.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not
tuned to Joe Biden.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to believe about this, but it is incredibly unusual to, like, 60 years after the event, having this pretty critical eyewitness coming forward saying, actually, I was the one who first handled this critical piece of evidence. I put it somewhere completely different from where it was actually found in a way that challenges the whole, the whole official narrative. So let's put it this way. This is not going to end any arguments about what happened. It's probably going to start a few more. I don't think we are ever going to know what actually happened with this, definitively. But anyway, that memoir is going to be called The Final Witness by John Landis.
There we go.
Released on October 10th.
Is that going to go into the book list?
No, because I haven't read it. I'm not recommending it.
How much integrity does this man have?
I can't recommend something that I haven't read.
See, this is why we love him.
Yes.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, look in the blurb under the Facebook and YouTube videos, and you'll see Dave's recommendations of books he's actually read.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's going to start some arguments. I want to argue with someone over that. The trauma thing. I mean, he's a Secret Service agent. Like, you'd think he'd be able to give a statement. Of course he would have mentioned it in the statement. The shame, of course he would have mentioned a critical detail like that in an official statement.
Trauma's a pretty indiscriminate thing.
Garbage. What he should be doing right now is he should be
what this 88-year-old man should be doing right now with the last years of his life.
He should be going where he belongs, which is the US Senate. He should head straight there right now. He's almost old enough to run. Maybe another couple of years. The only problem with him is that you say he was lucid. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to poll Pourri, which I'll get a sting for soon, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Got an update on the race polling from last week.
Oh, yes.
We were talking about Biden losing ground amongst non-white voters, and you made the point.
Yes, the New York Times basically just said exactly what we were talking about.
They really did.
Last week.
They really did. They noted that the loss was concentrated in non-swing states.
Yes, and so they were making the claim that Trump's electoral college advantage has almost completely disappeared.
Yes.
So an electoral college advantage that was worth a discrepancy of about 4 points in 2020.
Yep.
They claim has almost completely disappeared.
That's it.
And that's because Trump has basically lost white support in Midwestern states, including Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. What he is getting to compensate for that, in terms of why he's even in the national polls, is, largely Latino support in non-competitive states.
Yep. And they also
mentioned New York, which we didn't mention last week, but it is another non-competitive state.
The numbers from New York was it was California was one they cited as well. They said, for example, Biden is now leading in California by 17 points.
Yes,
when he won it by 27 in 2020, as an example. And they made the point that in one of their recent polls, in battleground states, Biden was leading Trump 47-43 compared with a 46-44 lead amongst all registered voters nationally.
That's right.
And so the other point they made, they said, which was not related to what we said, but just I was raised as well, is that possibly, because they were speaking about why this electoral college advantage might be disappearing.
Yeah.
They said it's possible that that people who might otherwise vote for the Democrats in blue states might have thought there was a bit of overreach going on in social issues.
Yep.
And they could afford to not support Democrats there.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's a blue state.
Yep.
Whereas on purple states, where democracy is more of an issue, people are a bit harder to dislodge from voting for Democrats. There's nothing they speculate. But anyway, I just thought I'd raise that.
Anyway, yes, that's what the New York Times says, and you heard it here first.
You did. Maybe they listen to PEP as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Lots of changes. An interesting poll, a bad poll for Biden, seeing it from CNN, 39% approval, but 67% of Democrats said they wanted another candidate. But here's the thing which I found interesting.
Yeah.
When those same respondents were asked the guys who said they wanted another candidate. When those same respondents were asked who the party's 2024 nominee should be. No other, and they go, we're given a list of like 12 people.
Yeah.
No other person polled above 3%.
Right, yes.
Sanders got 3%.
Yeah.
Buttigieg got 3%.
Yeah.
Newsom got 2%. Whitmer got 2%.
Yeah.
And Harris got 1%.
Yeah.
And that is why Biden is not going to be stepping down.
Yeah.
She's on a list there, and she got 1% support.
Yes.
People who say Biden shouldn't be the candidate.
There's also, there's always this speculation that Newsom could mount a run. He's not. Newsom has actually come out fervently in support of
Harris. Yes, of Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, they go back a way.
Yeah. And I think that's because he realizes that even if he was to position himself, next year would not be his year.
Yeah.
He's positioning himself for
2028.
further down the track.
That's what I've always thought as well.
Yes.
And then another part also from that CNN poll was another little interesting thing. In head-to-head polls between Biden and every Republican candidate.
Yeah.
Every Republican candidate either ties or beats Biden by 1 point, except Ramaswamy, who Biden beats by 1 point, 46 to 45, and Haley, who beats Biden 49 to 43.
Wow.
Like, big outlier. compared to the rest of the field.
Remember I said she was going to emerge as the Republican that people who don't vote Republican would like the most from that debate. Yeah.
Well, it seems that a lot of those people might vote Republican if she's if she's the nominee. It's a big if. Echelon, another interesting thing when we talk about the primaries. A primary without Trump poll has DeSantis at 34 and Ramaswamy at 32.
Wow.
Pence 7, Haley 6, Scott 4, Christie 4.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear what happens if Trump disappears at this point in time.
Yes.
It becomes a real ding-dong fight between DeSantis and Trump too.
Yes.
Okay, so there are two things which I have left. We did well.
Yes, we did.
We've gotten there. There was. Would you prefer to talk about Cornel West or Mitt Romney?
Let's talk about Cornel West.
Okay, so it's question time. I need a sting for this.
Yes.
This is from our viewer Mick Flippelnips. I don't know if it's too early or even interesting, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on Cornel West's run and any implications it will have, if any. Cheers.
Yeah, I don't think it'll have any electoral implications. And this is something that's been talked about a lot. Given Joe Biden's unpopularity among Democrats, what happens if there's a no-labels candidate, if there's an independent candidate from the left as Cornel West, even if there's a compelling Greens candidate, even if he has a strong Democratic challenger in the primary, given his weakness with Democrats, what happens if someone comes along who could potentially split the vote? My answer to this is, for Democrats, the next election is not about Biden, it's about Trump. And not just for Democrats as well, basically for everybody. I don't really, as unpopular as Biden is with the left and with many Democrats, I really think that at the next election, and I think the same thing is if there's a challenger to Trump from the right, people are going to largely ignore them because it's all going to be about the basically the referendum on Trump, which I think is going to be a lot like what 2020 was, where in stark contrast to 2016, where 3 or 4% of the vote went to Greens or Libertarian candidates, leading to people realizing afterwards that actually affected the outcome of the election. Same as in 2000 when Nader didn't get a huge amount of votes, but given the closeness of it, it was enough to affect the outcome of the election. I think next year is going to be so focused on basically the binary of Trump or not Trump that I don't think that any extra candidate is really going to affect that outcome.
Okay, let me agree with you and then ask you a question.
Yes.
The agreement is that I agree that no one on the left who would conceivably vote for Biden ever would vote for Cornel West when Trump is on the ballot for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're right. 2016 is not so long ago that people don't remember that.
Yep.
And especially since it involves the same guy.
Yes.
If it didn't involve the same guy, people might move on. But there are during the election campaign, people are going to say Trump got elected the first time because of the Greens candidate, even though I don't think that's necessarily true.
No.
But they're going to say that.
Yes, yeah.
And I think so. I think that's going to be the first issue.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Cornel West won't get votes, but it'll be from people who would not have voted
and it'll also
Biden.
his vote will be concentrated in states where Biden has no chance of losing. Yeah.
I think another reason why Cornel West will not win a single Democrat vote that who have over Democrats is because he's good mates with he likes Bernie Sanders. He doesn't have a problem with Bernie Sanders or AOC. He sees them as people who are being taken advantage of by the Democrats. He doesn't see them as malign forces at all. No. And so he's not going to be playing dirty.
No.
He's not going to, he's going to be there.
Yes.
Doing his thing, just being gentle. And Bernie Sanders is going to be arguing extremely passionately to exactly Cornel West supporters. Why they should be supporting the Democrats. And anyone who would ever conceivably support the Democrats will follow what Bernie Sanders says. I think.
Now, that brings us to one of the weirdest elements of this whole thing.
Yes.
Which is Cornel West's campaign manager. It was Peter Dow.
Oh, yes. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so Peter Dow was one of these Democratic figures who I think he was pretty big in the Netroots kind of scene in the early 2000s, so very big, prolific early blogger, realized the power of the internet for communication, was a massive Hillary Clinton supporter, including a real attack dog for her online in 2016. And, often that was directed against Sanders and his supporters.
So what's going on?
Dow, it's got to be said, because he was one of these ubiquitous presences on Twitter at the time. He got incredibly annoying and stupid. I'm pretty sure I muted him. And he was one of these people that, it's not like I followed him, but everyone was constantly dunking on him so much that, even if you didn't follow him, you were constantly seeing his shit. He seems to have had this complete turnaround. So he's become a Sanders supporter. He's become a Sanders super fan.
Yeah.
And now he's Cornel West's campaign manager.
Okay.
So I don't know what's going on there other than that American politics is full of these fundamentally unmoored people.
The zeal of the converted.
Yes.
Okay, so my question to you, though, is, are you saying, when you're saying you don't think a third party can make a difference, that you think even no labels can't make a difference?
I don't think they can.
Okay.
I think everyone is going to tell them to go and shove it.
Because I was going to say, because my view is, I'm not sure about that, because I think on the left, where they're way, way, way away from Trump, they'll be motivated strongly by negative partisanship like everyone else is, and they'll be listening to Bernie Sanders, etc. In the middle, where it's a little bit wishy-washy, and they probably don't like either Biden or Trump, I could see conceivably someone who could vote for Biden in disgust voting potentially for a no labels person because they're not motivated by negative partisanship, because they hate both Biden and Trump.
I don't see it.
And it's the I guess we'll find out. They're already on the ballot in 11 states and counting, so I think they're going to have a candidate.
Potentially Joe Manchin.
Yeah, potentially.
No, but I just don't think. As I say, I don't see it. I think that even if people hate Biden or Trump, most of them hate one of them more.
Okay. I'll say one more thing about Cornel West, though, just to the questioner. This is not about him directly.
Yeah.
I'll admit I'm not really an expert on Cornel West, but generally speaking, for Greens Party candidates and people who support Greens Party candidates, I kind of get annoyed by these people running for president rather than running to change the system.
Yes.
Because they are useless until the system is changed.
Yes.
And then they can actually make a difference. Like the best that a third party candidate can do, if they're an ideological party candidate, either on the right or the left, is to maybe push the major party nominee a smidge on one issue. That's the best they can hope for.
Yeah.
And they'd be pretty lucky to be able to do that.
Yes, yeah.
But if they can change the system so that there was, if it was either like preferential voting or something like that, then they could potentially actually make it. So I just feel like people who are so motivated enough and hate the Democratic and Republican parties enough to run against them.
Yep.
I just wish they'd get together and try to campaign to change the system. They won't be able to do it in one night, in one election. But if they just add it again and again and again and again, eventually you might be able, they do it at the state level if they can do it at the state level and so on. Now,
slow boring of hardboards.
Exactly. I just think this is not going to happen in 2024 or 2028 or 2032.
Yeah.
But it might happen in 2040 or 2048 if you start
40-20.
Yeah, that's right. The Mike Knowles example.
Yeah.
If you start now
Yes.
actually doing real campaigning at the grassroots level to change the system.
There you go.
And that's what
We're
I would be doing
removing
if I was
this
there.
absolutely unforgivingly single-member district system, modifying it in some way.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we thoroughly
I think that's it. We
covered lots of stuff.
We managed to do 2 hours.
We did. I underestimated our ability to
talk about things that we had not even bothered to prepare talking about.
That's right. The rest of these gas bags.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dave. As always,
pleasure.
I'll
Thank
see
you.
you next week.
See you next week,
I'll
Peppers.
see all you next week, Peppers. Stay peppy.